Hi, my name is Susan Rushton, and this is Olio. Before I go any further, I need to explain what Olio means. Olio is short for olla podrida, which is Spanish for rotten bowl or rotten pot, which either one works. And I just think that's a kick. It's a Spanish-Portuguese dish with essentially everything in the world in it. Basically, pork, bacon. Pork in all its iterations, bacon, sausage, pig's ears, pig's feet probably, also as well as chicken, chickpeas, cabbage, carrots, beans, especially onions and garlic. Like I said, everything in the world, except kiwi and marinated artichoke hearts. That's one definition. Another definition is that olio is it is part of melodrama. It comes in between the acts of melodrama. You might have somebody singing, you might have somebody a couple of people making a skit, or maybe making jokes, and none of it has anything to do with anything else, and certainly none of it has anything to do with the melodrama. So in other words, it's apples, oranges, and a monkey wrench. So welcome to my monkey wrench. Today we have a fascinating, energetic, sincere, dedicated, did I say dedicated? Dedicated, and dedicated.
Yep,
woman, Sallysue Stein. Thank you, Sallysue.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, you're welcome, and I'm happy we could do this. Sallysue is founder and executive director of Gold Country Wildlife Rescue. And before we go any further, the Wildlife Rescue is at 11251 B Avenue in Auburn, California. You know, here. And if you have any questions or need to know something or asking for help, 530-885-0862 or goldcountrywildliferescue.org. And Sallysue says if you telephone, you are going to hear lots of, if you want to know about this, hit this. If you want to know about this, hit this. If you have a question about this, hit this, and we'll get back to you. They have 13,000 what?
Phone calls a year.
Phone calls a year. That's quite a bit. It's more than I get. So, Sallysue, what is Gold Country Wildlife Rescue?
Well, it's a nonprofit that I started back in 1991. Okay. And our mission is to rescue, rehabilitate, and return to the wild sick, orphaned, and injured Native California wildlife. So we don't take in domestics. We take in
like dogs.
Right. They're across the street from us.
Or cats.
Actually, since 2017, we've been leasing the old Placer County Animal Services Shelter, the old dog pound when I was a kid.
Okay.
Since 2017. And Placer County Animal Services is across the street in their big, beautiful new building, which I've put dibs on if they outgrow it. I don't think that's going to happen in my lifetime, but just in case. Because
guys,
the building,
I want that.
Yeah, I do.
Think of me, remember me.
I do. I lust after it. But the building we're in is very old. It's a concrete block building built in the 60s, and there's no maintenance provided with our rental, which is $1,100 a month. So we're always fixing broken air conditioners. It leaks when it rains. We have a couple of volunteers named Rick, and one is Roof Rick because he comes and tries to fix our leaks. The other Rick fixes things inside the building. We cobble things together to keep it working.
Okay.
We get most of our funding from private donations, up to 90% from private donors.
And how can a person get money to you?
They can go to our website, which is www.goldcountrywildliferescue.org. And there'll be a donate button at the top. You can shop because we have an online store where you can buy clothes with our beautiful logo on it, or cups, insulated cups, hiking gear, that kind of stuff. There's lots of ways to donate. We also have a very active social media presence with over 70,000 followers on Facebook and Instagram. So I recommend people go there also, because then you can see daily what animals we're getting in, and it's baby season.
So that's Facebook and
Instagram.
Okay.
And we have an active YouTube channel also.
Wow.
So lots of videos on our YouTube channel of releases, of treatments. There's so much information.
Yeah.
We also update our website regularly with something we call Get the Scoop, so which is the latest news. So when we released 2 bears, for instance, about a month ago, it was on Facebook, it was on Instagram, it's also a story on our website, and there's a video on YouTube about that. So there's various places you can access it.
Yeah.
Now, one thing you can't do is come visit us in person. We're permitted by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to do this work, and also U.S. Fish and Wildlife for migratory birds.
And the more people they see, the more
Right. Habituated.
Hi, how are you? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so happy to see you.
Yeah.
They say, or they get, but probably they get, oh, you're feeding me. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And then they go to sleep. When we feed them, they go to sleep.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to see the inside, and so we try to video as much as we can and show that to people, what it looks like to have a room full of hundreds of baby birds in it that need fed in the beginning every 20 minutes, and then we gradually stretch them out to every 30 minutes, 45, and that goes on from sun up till sundown. I don't know if you've ever had the privilege of watching a bird nest, robins outside. That's all they're doing all day is going out finding the worms or whatever they're feeding and bringing it back to their babies. So, and we as humans have to substitute, right, and do that. So we have.
Are some of them volunteers?
Yes, we have volunteers and paid staff. We have so many. I think I said we have over 700 animals in care right now. We can't rely just on volunteers. The volunteers don't want to be there 12 hours a day, right? They want to do a 4-hour shift a week.
Sure.
Understandably, we can't cobble enough together to take care of all the animals we have. So we do have paid staff. We have quite a robust paid staff, actually.
And you always need volunteers.
Yes. Well, right now we're closed. We've got all the volunteers we need right now.
Wow.
And it's too busy at this point for us to stop. We don't have the capacity to stop and train the volunteers because everybody's just working. I think when Phil was over the other day, he saw it was a madhouse. We took
Phil who?
Phil Jacques, that guy over there behind the camera. We took in almost 100 animals the day he was there.
Wow.
And so picture taking in 100 new animals, so you've got to deal with the rescuer who brings them in, all the paperwork. It's important we find out exactly where they were found so we can try to get them back to the area they came from when they're released. And then there are more babies, new babies coming in to feed, and you're taking care of already hundreds of animals.
Yes.
So it's a pretty well-oiled machine that we've got organized because there's certain people who are doing triage, there are certain people who are feeding, there are certain people who are cleaning enclosures, there's a whole other group of people who are preparing diets for all these animals. It's just, the work is never ending.
And before we go into the babies, I want to ask if somebody wants to volunteer, you take the volunteer information? You're willing to do that at least?
Well, if you go to our website, you'll see we have a volunteer portal.
Okay.
But it'll come up and let you know if it's open or not.
Okay.
Because if it's not open, we're not gathering information.
Right.
Because we found if we do that, by the time we then reach out to that person, they found other place to volunteer or their life has changed. So we open that volunteer window when we know we can take those volunteers in and train them. And then we close it and get about the business of rehabbing wildlife.
So if you are interested in being a volunteer, keep looking.
Yes.
Volunteer for the wildlife rescue.
Yes.
Keep looking at the website, and if it says it's open, jump. Okay. this if it's open, that means that you need volunteers.
Yes, and another way you can help us, you can watch the website and our social media channels, because recently we asked for people who could sew. And we get donations of fleece that we turn into pouches for little baby possums and squirrels to hide in, and liners for our certain cages. So we give you all the instructions and the patterns you need to be able to do that. So often we have jobs that you can do at home for us, and we put that on our social media and on our website. There's projects like that. There's something as simple as cutting liners, and liners are these, I don't know what you call them. If they're not a sheet, they're a papery kind of material that we get from the hospital and the surgery center. So for instance, you'll see the instrument trays come out wrapped in this blue and white paper that's been sterilized. They open that up and it turns out to be quite a large liner that we call a liner. And we call it that because we line our cages with it.
Okay. And
we get just huge garbage bags full of those. And these are clean. They haven't been on a human body or anything. Obviously, the hospital has that's biohazard waste if it's been used by humans. But this is clean and can be reused. And we take those and cut them into various sizes. We have all kinds of patterns for every size enclosure, little baskets to big laundry baskets that we use for birds to our much bigger enclosures.
like bears.
Well, the bears don't use the liners.
Okay.
The bears would make short work of a liner, but it's for our smaller animals and our baby animals, and we need those cut into those various sizes.
Yeah, and you guys don't have time for that.
We do a lot of it ourselves in the winter, in the slower months, but boy, this time of year we're often going, we need people to cut liners, and that's something we'll put out on social media, on our website, and you can come pick up a big bag of them and patterns and take it home and cut it up. And sometimes the scouts will do it with their kids.
Oh, cool.
Or just moms that have kids home for the summer will do things like that.
Good.
So we do try to offer opportunities for the public to help us.
Yeah.
And we ask them to collect acorns in the fall. And we ask fishermen to bring us fresh fish when we have bears in, or osprey or kites that need that kind of food. So there's opportunities all the time, even if you're not, quote, a formal volunteer with us.
Okay. Now, you've been saying that things slow down in the winter.
Right.
Because lots of people, lots of kids, lots of animals go away. Or
well, they grow up. The babies are born in the spring.
Yeah.
So we're busy all spring and summer getting those in, raising them, and releasing them.
What happens, though? What happens?
What do you mean, what happens?
I mean, why are so many babies?
Oh, why do we see so many of the babies? Well, if you drive the back roads, you'll see all of those people out working for PG&E trimming trees. And historically, that was done in the dead of winter. And now, because of the fire and problems with homeowners insurance, it's done year-round. So this time of year, when they're out cutting the trees, I just cringe when I drive by, because I know that tree is full of life.
Nest.
Yeah.
Yes, and several nests.
Yes. And so we hope they will bring us any nests they find. But people at their private homes are also, you're out gardening, right? You're trimming bushes, and if you don't look before you cut, suddenly you have a pile, and then, oh my God, you see a hummingbird nest or a robin's nest or something. Or if a tree falls down and you have to clean it up, in the hollows you might find baby raccoons or baby squirrels, or you just never know. So that's how they come to us.
Yeah. Okay. And so Rescue Place is filled with babies at the moment.
we are, yes. It's a squawking, crying mess over there. Everybody wants fed. But I say that jokingly because it's really noisy first thing in the morning when they've been alone for most of the night. We'll sometimes work till 10 or 11 at night.
Yeah.
But as soon as they're fed, everybody goes to sleep. So you can walk through at times and it's very quiet because we have schedules and we have staff and we have volunteers that are keeping those animals fed and happy, and they're quiet then because their instinct is to be quiet. They don't want to attract predators, right? Yeah. So it's not as noisy as I make it out to be, except for certain times of day.
It's noisy enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of animals do you have the most?
Well, we take in between 4,500 and 5,000 animals a year, and about half of those are small birds, songbirds, scrub jays, the corvids, scrub jays, blue jays, crows, those kinds of things. And then we get several hundred raptors, hawks and owls, and vultures a
Baby
year.
vultures.
Yeah,
Baby
and
vultures,
we get
baby owls.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And you asked how we got them, and I mentioned the tree cutting, but it's not just tree cutting. People's cats bring them things all the time.
Hi, Mom.
Yes.
Look at this. I love you so
If
much.
it's still alive, we ask you to bring it to us. The dogs bring things in. There are window strikes by birds. We ask
yeah.
people bring us the window strikes because even if that bird recovers and flies away, it will often die because it has a head injury. And we all know what happens with head injuries. They don't present sometimes until
Right.
later, the symptoms. So we treat those as if they have a concussion.
Okay.
Anything that your cat or your dog brings in, we ask you to bring to us, even if it looks okay to you, especially with a cat, because you often can't find the pinprick puncture that a cat's tooth makes, which introduces infection, and usually the animal will get septic and die. So we want those animals in so we can get them on a course of antibiotics right away. And if they're adults, we typically don't have to keep them very long. Just a few days, get them through their course of antibiotics, make sure everything's working, and then they can go back out to the wild.
But if they're babies, they need...
And then the other real two big dangers to the animals that most of this, as you can probably tell from what I'm talking about, is human related. We're seeing these animals because of human impact.
Yes.
Our cars is another big problem.
Yeah.
And our fences. They get caught in our fences, they get hurt by our fences. So I feel compelled to give those animals a second chance. I mean, that's one of the reasons I do this, because most of what we're seeing is because of us.
Yeah.
You know?
It's our fault.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's our pets, our fences, our cars. And these animals have been here for eons before us, before cars, before our fences.
Yes.
And it's going to take them a long time to adapt
Sure.
to that. And so in the meantime, I feel we need to give them a helping hand and give them a second chance.
Yes. So you've been doing this since 1991.
I founded Gold Country Wildlife Rescue in 1991.
Why?
Because I'd been rehabbing for several years prior to that under the licenses of a group in Sacramento and then a group over in El Dorado County.
Like this.
Like this,
Okay.
right, with the same permits that we have. And it became clear that Placer County needed its own group. There was such a high volume of animals and so much work to be done. And to coordinate with Sacramento or to coordinate with Placerville from here, it just became untenable. So there were 5 or 6 of us rehabbing from our homes. There was no shelter at that time for us to use. And I wrote a proposal to California Department of Fish and Wildlife, back then it was called Fish and Game, and explained what the need was and why they should give me this permit. And then they did. Everybody told me I would not get a permit. Fish and Wildlife did not want another rehab group, but I got the permit, and then I went, oh no.
Thanks a lot.
I should think before I do these things. I had then had to write bylaws and start a 501c3 and go through that whole process. So that's what 1991 was about, and I think we got about 250 to 300 animals that year, which at the time seemed like a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
And I just always had this passion for wildlife. I'm also very passionate. I'm passionate about all animals, let's face it. And I've done a lot of rescue work with domestic animals. I was very active in the Placer SPCA back in the late 70s and early 80s prior to me starting to get into wildlife. Once I felt like the SPCA was on its way.
You can do this now.
Yeah. I was on the board then, and I helped get them to a more professional board and grow a little bit so that the pieces were in place for them to become the phenomenal organization that they are today. And then I turned my sights to wildlife. So that's how it came about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you get interested in animals?
I was born interested in animals. I was a tomboy. I think it came from my grandmother. My mother's mother always had rescued animals in her kitchen, and I grew up on a little farm. We raised our own meat and our milk. My mother made butter. so I was in a rural agricultural environment, so there were always animals in need. You know, there were kittens that needed help, or puppies that needed help, or and then the occasional wildlife.
Yeah.
So I've always just been a passionate lover of animals. And I've done a lot of rescue work also with domestics with Humane Society of the United States. For years I went out on to disasters with them and to hoarding situations as a volunteer.
What do you mean, hoarding?
You find a house that has 300 cats in it, or
And walk away.
yeah. Then they call in the local.
Not her.
They call in the local animal control services, obviously in the law, and then they reach out. Organizations usually, when they're big situations like that with hundreds of animals, the local animal control services doesn't have the capacity to handle it by themselves, so they'll reach out to American SPCA or HSUS, which is the Humane Society of the United States, and ask for help. And they've got trucks ready to go. They've got arrangements with PetSmart, for instance, that the rescues I went on would donate all the crates, and we'd get to a fairgrounds and we'd be putting together hundreds of crates for those animals, and then we'd start bringing the animals in and processing them, getting them the medical care they needed. And the really nice thing about what, at the time, I'm sure it still happens, what PetSmart did was all the equipment that was sent to that site stays with that local animal control service for future use. So it helps the local community going forward as well as helping that immediate need. And I went to Hawaii once on a hoarding case where a woman had cats, dogs, chickens, geese, and everybody said, "Oh, you're so lucky to go to Hawaii." And I thought, they have no idea that I spend all day chasing chickens and geese and being covered with bird lice, and then go home and die for 8 hours and get up and do it again for 12 to 14 hours. And I had the luxury of being able to do this. My husband and
I have the luxury of being able to do this. I have the luxury.
I could have kept up my professional life and just made more money and bought more things, but we're comfortable with one salary, and my husband and I talked about it because he's a workaholic, and he said,
"Don't you get paid?"
"No, I'm a volunteer."
What?
Yeah, I don't make a penny doing this.
Sallysue Stein.
This is not a fair. I didn't put together a very good.
You don't get paid for this.
I didn't put together a very good business model. We provide our services for free, and there is no revenue stream. Who thought this was a good idea? So
because the animals aren't going to pay.
We have to work. Well, if people had to pay to bring us their animals, they wouldn't. Most people can't afford it.
Yeah.
And I get that. So we provide the services for free, and then we ask for donations. I beg all the time for money for donations, and the community responds, and we write grants, private grants. We get a little bit of funding from the government now because on your taxes, you know how you can say I want to donate $5 to the library. You can donate $5 to Wildlife Rescue. And then we apply for a grant to get that money. We apply to California Department of Fish and Wildlife, we being rescue groups like myself. And you can qualify for a certain amount based upon the number of animals you take in a year. So this year we qualified, I think, for $14,000. And
that helps.
We got another $9,000 because we're one of 4 organizations in the state that can rehabilitate black bear cubs, and it's hugely expensive to raise.
You can what? Black bear cubs?
Rehabilitate black bear cubs.
Rehabilitate.
Yes.
Just define rehabilitate.
We take in these orphaned black bear cubs, sometimes injured. We take in the animals from the fires as well. That's a whole nother story. The wonderful work we do with a veterinarian out of the Davis area who has come up with a biologic bandage using tilapia fish skin.
Tilapia.
Yes.
That's a tilapia. That's a fish.
And she saw that in South America it was being used on humans, and they were finding that it had incredible pain relief quality, healing quality. And she first used it on the Thomas Fire in Southern California on adult bears and a mountain lion juvenile. And the bears couldn't even walk. Their paws were so badly burned. When she treated them with not just tilapia skin, but they're also getting pain medications. Sure. She does acupuncture. pulsed electromagnetic field
Acupuncture
therapy.
for bears.
Yes.
This won't hurt at all.
Yeah. Well, they're asleep when we're working on them.
Okay.
So she tries to treat the pain from every possible way that she can, not just opiates, not just oral meds that we typically think of for pain meds. But the bears were up and walking on their bandaged feet, where they couldn't walk before. Yeah, so we knew that it helped them. So for several years, we had lots of burned animals in. The last 2 years, we haven't had the major wildfires. Thank you to the fire departments and CAL FIRE,
Thank you.
Doing such a phenomenal job keeping these things under control. Because I don't even want to think. If I think, it makes me cry of the thousands of animals. Let alone, look at the people that are impacted. Sure. Look at the people who've lost their lives in the campfire out of Paradise. Yeah. We got 3 animals from the Paradise Fire. Now there were thousands more that didn't get rescued. But that was the first year we got burned animals. We got a juvenile bobcat and 2 juvenile gray foxes. And I learned about Dr. Jamie Payton and her fish skin. Yeah. And we ended up I was first taking this bobcat to UC Davis for treatment every couple of days. And when we started, the bottoms of his paws, the pads were burned off. He had 5th degree burns. Oh,
5th degree.
I didn't know there was such a thing until then.
I didn't either.
There's even more degrees. And you could see the bones. You could see the bones. Oh. So I took him in and we got him under, they said, Sallysue, catch the bobcat. And I did. With my catch pole and stuff. And the students and the doctors are all standing back watching. And then they sedated him with an injection, and then when he was sedated, he was put on a table and put on a general anesthesia machine, and they got to work on him. And I watched them clean the paws, and Jamie said to me, he's got 5th degree burns. And I said, oh, okay, so then we're going to euthanize him. And she looked at me kind of funny, and she said, no. She goes, no, I can fix him. And I said, okay, I have a couple questions.
One of them is how?
Will he be releasable? Because if he's not releasable, our permit is to release these animals. We can't keep them as pets. Right. We're not a sanctuary. We do have a few ambassador animals, but generally speaking, our animals are either going out or they're going to be euthanized, unfortunately. And she said, oh no, he'll be fine. She goes, he won't, his pads are gone, but his feet are callous. He won't be the king of the jungle or the forest, but he'll be fine. He'll be able to climb and hunt.
He'll find somebody.
Yes, he'll be able to manage. And I said, okay. Yeah. I said, but what does he have to go through? How painful? What torture are we maybe, doing to this poor animal? And she goes, oh, he'll be fine. She goes, when he wakes up today, he'll want to kill you. He'll be swatting at you. And I said, okay, good. And then I watched her, take this clean, and she has a pain medication, a salve that she puts on and leaves on. She does cold laser treatments, and then she cleans everything off again and then treats it with a tilapia fish skin and wraps them almost like if you've seen somebody, a cast put on somebody. Sure. There's lots of padding and such. That kind of padding is put on and the wrap put on. And literally when he was waking up when he was coming awake all the way back up to Auburn, but when we got him to Auburn and put him in, he ran out of that crate into his enclosure and on his bandaged feet and wanted to kill us, and I was amazed.
So a brilliant woman found a brilliant woman.
I don't know that I'm brilliant, but I'm dedicated.
Oh, and you're brilliant, woman.
Maybe more brawn than brains. But
Wow. Wow. That's thrilling.
It is. It was really exciting. And we released him 11 weeks later.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what a gift to be able to do that. That's our reward. I don't get paid, but that's my reward.
And you keep getting a reward.
Yes. Yes, it's really hard work and a lot of time, and it's thankless because the animals don't give a hoot about us. It's not like they say, "Oh, thank you for saving my life." Yeah. They just get away from us as quickly as they can.
Yeah, but the fact that they can get away quickly,
we've done our job. Yeah. We've given them a second chance.
That's their thank you.
Yes, that's their thank you to us. Is their ability to go out and survive and live their wild life that they were intended to live. Yes.
That's thrilling, and I'm a sap because I get, and I can imagine, maybe you're a sap too.
I am a sap.
I'm teary at the moment thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that there are times when you watch them go, and I have seen things on Facebook where they let the big birds out of the crate, and
They fly.
They think about it, and then they boom go. And the problem is, that's when the movie stops. I don't see them hugging each other.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. And one of our current issues is, I don't know if everyone's aware, with the brown pelican issue that's going on up and down the coast in California, from about Santa Cruz down to LA. They're finding hundreds of starving brown pelicans. They're emaciated, they're dehydrated, and the problem is there's very few facilities that can handle those birds. So those facilities that can handle the brown pelicans, I think there's already close to 400 in care, have had to close their doors to all the other water birds that they took care of. And it's having a ripple effect and coming inland. So the day Phil was out at our facility, we took in 40 more herons and egrets. We already had about 20 from Santa Rosa Bird Rescue.
Wow.
Because they would have typically transferred those to International Bird Rescue in Fairfield, which is called IBR. IBR is inundated with pelicans, them coming out their ears, begging for volunteers and funds to help. So people are calling us because we are one of the larger rehabs in the area, and we're open year-round.
You are one of the larger
rehab centers, wildlife rehab, yes.
In the area.
And we're open
One of the
360.
largest.
Yeah. We're open 365 days a year. Most of the smaller ones are just open for baby season. Not us.
Not
No.
Even though you're not paid, you're still doing it.
Yes, I'm still doing it. We do pay staff, but that's what I raise money for, is to pay staff, because again, I have the luxury of being able to do this. Not very many people can work, volunteer full time taking care of wildlife and not get paid for it, right?
Right.
They have to earn a living. They have to feed their children. They have to feed themselves and their pets. So that's why I feel like I'm in a really unique position. Again, my family's been supportive of this. When I started this group, one of the things I specialized in was raising fawns. So I was the only fawn rehabber in the area. And sometimes I'd have 50 little fawns that needed, some were brand new
around
coming
your
in.
house?
We had 20 acres, and we built enclosures that I fenced it, and then we put up redwood fence, board fence around it, so that they didn't see people, dogs, or cars.
Yeah.
And everybody had to be quiet. I had a surveyor's flag I put up when I was going to feed, and my daughter was young at the time, and they were playing in the pool.
Mama.
Everybody knew they had to get out of the pool, go in the house, and be quiet, or this mama would get really angry, because if the fawns heard voices, they'd bolt to the back of the pasture, and they wouldn't come feed.
Yeah.
So everybody knew at least 4 times a day this was going to happen, and it's just the way it is. But my husband and daughter joked at the time that you had to have spots to get fed at our house. I spent so many hours, making formula, warming formula, washing bottles, taking care of the animals, that I was like, I'm not going to feed you guys too. You're on your own. So my daughter learned to be very independent at an early age, and my husband took care of himself. But often I talked, because I did have a small business for several years in town, and
not anymore.
When I started doing this, he said, well, no, you give back and we'll be fine. You can spend your time doing this. He was very supportive of it, because he saw how much it meant to me. So sometimes I feel like I'm a parasite because I don't earn a living.
I understand.
But again, I feel like I've used my talents and energy to something productive.
Yes.
And my goal now, I've just turned 70, and my goal is sometime in the next year or two, I would like to have us hire a real executive director who's paid. And when I die, I just want to know that Gold Country's self-sustaining, is just going on
But that's
without
going to
me.
be in a
Well,
while
I don't know
away.
when it'll, who knows when it will be, but I just want Gold Country to go on and grow and be self-sustaining and not even remember who Sallysue was. They don't have to remember who I was. I just,
You care about the animals.
I just want,
It's the
I just
animals
want
that
that
are- that's
facility
your
for
point,
the
yeah.
animals. Yeah. So we just recently asked for money to help us with this influx of heron and egrets. Channel 3 News came up and he said, what do you foresee happening? Like, when will we have a solution to the brown pelicans and know what's going on? Because they don't know what's causing the problem. And I said, I don't foresee it happening this season. The pelicans are still coming in. All the other water birds are still coming in. They're going to keep coming to us and to the other groups that can help. So we all need help. We all need funds for this hit.
Mm-hmm.
They eat smelt, and smelt's not cheap. And little baby growing herons and egrets can eat 9 or 10 fish in one feeding, and they eat at least 3 times a day. They're pigs. They're little hungry pigs.
Yeah.
Another project we have is to finish our apex predator enclosure where we raise the bears. We've built this huge structure to Fish and Wildlife standards for an apex predator. It's heavy duty chain link, heavy duty poles. It's a chain link cube, if you can imagine. There's 3 foot deep concrete stem walls, and at the bottom of those stem walls, the chain link is connected. It's bolted onto the concrete stem walls, so nobody can dig in, nobody can dig out, to keep the bears safe, to keep people safe. We were only able to get half of it usable before we got hit with bears last year. So now, as we prepare for the release of the final 3 bears, as soon as they're out, we can finish the other end, and we need $60,000 to finish the other half of the structure.
Wow.
And that's with a triple door entry system. Everything has to be custom made, with a couple of guillotine doors that have to be custom made.
Because this is the 21st century.
Well, you just can't go into the hardware store and say, I need bear doors, you know? We have 30,000 of that, and so we're going to put on a little campaign now to raise the next 30,000, because we have a window of opportunity. We can't work on the bear enclosure while there are bears in it, because we don't want to habituate them to humans and the noise and the vehicles and all that. So we're going to have a very short window to get in and get these fixes made, so we have the entire 150-foot long bear enclosure available for use, which will increase the number of bears we'll be able to take. And again, with only 4 places in the state that can do this, Fish and Game, there used to be 3, and then Fish and Wildlife asked us to apply for a permit and put up this structure. So, and then there's another project, because you've been out.
Yes, that was my next question. I met Sallysue last year because I belong to a group that we have dinner and a speaker, usually at one of our houses, and this time we met at 11251 B Avenue and talked to you, and then we went out to this place and had dinner that we brought.
We only feed animals.
They only feed animals.
You can use our lawn, but you have to feed yourself.
But it's I couldn't find it for the life of me now.
Good, because it's not open to the public yet.
Is it ever going to be open to the
Oh
public?
yeah.
Really?
So it's 15 acres that we bought off Mount Vernon Road.
Okay.
And we purchased it in 2020 with the help of some very generous donors. And our goal is that will be our permanent facility. We'll move out of the old animal shelter that we currently lease, and we'll move to that 15 acres. And then when you find a nest of baby birds, that's where you will go.
Yeah.
And so we'll have signage out on Mount Vernon, and right now there's nothing identifying it as belonging to us on purpose.
However, there's amazing stuff out there.
Yes, we've built probably, we're on our 16th enclosure, so including the apex predator enclosure for the bears. There are other smaller enclosures. We just christened our hummingbird flight cage, which is beautiful. We've put, flowering plants inside of it, and so there's all these little baby hummingbirds now trying to figure out what has food and what doesn't. It's not every bright color.
Yeah.
We had a photographer go in to do some video for us, and the orange and red spots on the tripod they were, and so they're trying to figure out what's a flower and what isn't. But we also have a donation that we received of 8 modular classrooms from a school in Lincoln. And a modular,
Thank you, Lincoln.
yes, and a modular bathroom goes with it, because there's nothing on this property yet. We have to put in a septic system. We have to put in all of the infrastructure. There is power to it, but we have to put in a new power service, because 8 modular classrooms, we're going to be pulling a lot of power to those. We're going to set those in place and make our new campus. So there are a couple barns on it, and then the rest was horse pasture. It was an equestrian facility prior to us buying it. So there's a lot of activity out there. We have sometimes a couple hundred animals in care out there. So we need to staff that as well as our facility in DeWitt, which we call our WIC. It's Wildlife Intake Center. And then we have remote release locations where once the babies they're babies at DeWitt, then they go to the Mount Vernon property as juveniles, and then they go out to release cages on remote locations. And we partner with Placer Land Trust, and they've worked with the owners of some of their conserved properties who have agreed to let us put up enclosures on their property. And then we can release the animals from there. And we do what's called a soft release.
Which means?
Which means when it's time for the animal will go out to the remote location, and they'll be in that enclosure for 10 to 14 days, which gives them an opportunity to learn who lives out there, what other animals live out there, and what ones want to eat me. And then once they realize that's their spot, that enclosure's their spot, there's food and water there, we open the door.
Okay.
And some things jet out immediately, like foxes and the birds and things like that, and opossums. The bobcats saunter, and there's a release. There's a video on our YouTube.
I love that. Say it again. The bobcats saunter.
Well, first they sit in the open doorway and look all around, and probably looking for a box or something. You know how cats are. And then they just slowly start to walk out. And we have cameras on them, is how we know. But if we release an adult bobcat, for instance, that we don't have to do a soft release on, it knows how to hunt. You open the crate and nothing happens. They just sit there. And you usually have to take the top off the crate. And then they sit there and they look at anybody that happens to be there. And then they start to walk away slowly, but they keep looking over their shoulder to see. Cats. They're cats. So it's a lot of work and a lot of money to staff. Now 3 locations is what we're dealing with. But to get us moved to the Mount Vernon property takes $1 million. So that's the road improvement that has to happen, the foundations for these modulars. The modulars need to get moved to there and hooked back together. Right now they're just sitting in a field with plastic. Each classroom is 2 trailers. The science classrooms are 3 trailers, and we have 2 science classrooms. So our goal this year is, and we hope to break ground in just the next couple months, is to get enough construction done to get those modulars moved into their new foundation area. It's not really a foundation, they'll be just like the school. They'll sit on treated wood on the ground. So we can get them back together and waterproofed, winterproofed, weatherproofed before we go through another winter. So from the $1 million, I have pledges, I've raised and have pledges for $650,000.
Okay. And all you
$450,000 this year. So I'm going to do we're going to do $450,000 worth of work this year.
Okay. And how much other money do you need?
Well, for that project, $350,000, but just every year our operating budget is $1.5 million. So I need to every year I have to raise the $1.5 million to keep the doors open. And then there's these other
and you need
smaller
to
projects.
Deal with these babies.
And then there's people feeding babies. Yeah. They keep me out of the building mostly. They say, Sallysue, go find money. Go find supporters. Yeah. So I am really thrilled. We've had some really good things happen this year with the money that we've gotten towards the capital campaign to get us moved there. Because then we'll be able to move out of this old building where we're spending rent and huge dollars on maintenance. I'd rather we be putting our money into our permanent facilities, right?
Permanent facility, yeah.
We have a new board member who a lot of your audience may know. He just retired from Sutter Health as the CEO of Sutter Auburn Faith Hospital. and he also was CEO of Sutter Coast Hospital. Worked for Sutter for 30 years.
Who is it?
Mitch Hanna.
Mitch Hanna.
Yes.
It sounds familiar.
So
He sounds familiar.
he's putting together a fundraising committee for us, and working with all the people he knows, and he knows a lot of people in the community.
Just like you.
I feel like it's a game changer for Gold Country Wildlife Rescue. Our board has historically been made up of animal rehabbers that are just
Animal rehabbers.
Going by the seat of our pants.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've, as
Trying
my mother would
this and
say,
trying that
the
and-
old saying, we've grown like Topsy. I feel like we have, but now it's time for us to have a professional board, a paid person doing my job, a paid person being our director of animal care, a paid person doing fundraising for us. So we're moving in that direction, and it makes
good.
me. I feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe it's not a train this time.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
can see daylight, and I can see maybe a path for me to retire. I would never completely stop, but as
Right.
long as I'm wanted around, I don't want to be a problem founder. Want to avoid founder syndrome as much as possible, because we're there, we're ready to make that next leap, and
Wonderful.
we just need younger people and
More people.
more people,
More people and more money.
to get us there. Yeah. There's so many opportunities for us.
Yes. And
it's
what you
very
need
exciting.
is people who are fascinated and interested and
Yes.
helpful and
Yes.
interested with music. Not music.
Not animals.
Animals.
I don't care if they like music too, because I like music, but
Yes.
the only music we play around our animals is natural bird sounds and nature sounds.
Oh, good. Okay. So, wow. All right. If you're interested in funding, if you're interested in donating, if you're interested in joining, please go to goldcountrywildliferescue.org. And if you have goldcountrywildliferescue.org, and if you find a hurt animal, take it to, or should they phone you?
If it's something that you can bring yourself, like a nest of little baby birds or little possums or something like that, safely,
Yeah.
please bring it to us. If you need help, if you're afraid to touch the animal, or it's an adult owl or something, or a fox or a raccoon or something like that, if you call our number, there's a tree, and it'll say, if you have a question, if you need help with a mammal, press whatever number.
Yeah.
And then volunteers will call you back, and we'll figure out how to help you.
Okay. If you have a problem with a mammal, push this. If you have a problem with a bird, do this, or that, vice versa, or whatever.
Yes.
530-885-0862 or 11251 B Avenue in California. Sallysue Stein. I was struck and delighted when I first met you last year. And I was tickled when we had coffee, and I'm tickled now. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you.
I'm so glad you had us here. We need more people to know about us.
Yes.
And this helps so much. It's a tremendous help and honor, and I'm very grateful.
Good. I'm happy. I'm grateful. And I hope you're grateful. And I'm thrilled that you're watching, and I'm happy that we're here. I'll see you later.